I'm trying to get us to start before I have to say good afternoon, so I think it's still good morning. I'm Valerie Lee, Vice President for Outreach and Engagement, Vice Provost for Diversity and Inclusion, and the university's Chief Diversity Officer. I have the honor of welcoming you to the 11th Annual James F. Patterson Land-Grant University Lecture. Every year at this time, we have the opportunity to remind ourselves of Ohio State's awesome responsibility as a land-grant university. And every year, I'm reminded of the faculty, staff, and students who have embodied our land-grant mission over the past year, many of whom are with us today. In fact, we just finished up our annual awards ceremony where we honored some wonderful programs and people for their achievements. Provost Steinmetz will tell you more about them a little later. If you are a social media user and would like to share your thoughts and pictures from today's lecture, we're using the hashtag OSUengages to follow the conversation. We have had many tremendous speakers over the years at the Patterson Lecture, and we have two of our previous Patterson lecturers with us today. Francine Farbaugh, a professor emerita from Cornell and a former faculty member at Ohio State, was our inaugural keynote speaker in 2004. And Jeff Wadsworth, president and CEO of Battelle, one of Ohio State's great partners, was our 7th keynote speaker in 2010. Please join me in welcoming our past speakers, if they would. You forgot to give the royal wave so they would know exactly where you were. Very good. Thank you. And we have another national leader today. On this occasion of having Dr. C. Peter Magrath as our Patterson lecturer, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that Ohio State's Young Scholars Program is the reigning recipient of an award named in his honor, the C. Peter Magrath University Community Engagement Award. This was Ohio State's first Magrath Award, which is presented by the Association of Public and Land-Grant Universities, and we are all very proud of the work the Young Scholars Program has been doing for more than 26 years in helping first-generation low-income students to succeed. Would representatives from the Young Scholars Program please stand to be recognized? Another wonderful milestone this year is the 100th anniversary of the Smith-Lever Act, which officially created the National Cooperative Extension System on May 8, 1914. And I can tell you that Ohio State Extension is second to none. Our university has dedicated extension educators and team members providing valuable engagement programming in all of Ohio's 88 counties. I would like to congratulate everyone involved in Extension for all they do for our Ohio communities. Could everyone here with us today who is involved with Extension please stand and be recognized? I am now happy to introduce a great supporter of outreach and engagement. This is his first time speaking at the Patterson Lecture, and we are so pleased that he is here. In his first year as provost, he already has made a great impact on our university. Please welcome my boss, Executive Vice President and Provost, Joseph E. Steinmetz.
Thank you, Valerie. Just before today's Patterson Lecture, we hosted the annual Outreach and Engagement Awards and Recognition Ceremony right next door here. I want to congratulate all of the winners of the Student Awards, the Staff and Community Partner Awards, the Service Learning Awards, the International Awards, and the Community Engagement Awards. So now I'd like to invite all of the award winners who are here in the room to please stand and be recognized by us at this time. At the awards ceremony, we also announced the winner of this year's University Outreach and Engagement Award. And the winner is the Ohio State University Endeavor Center. The Endeavor Center is located in Piketon, Ohio. It was opened in 2005 as a joint program of the College of Food, Agriculture, and Environmental Sciences and the Ohio Agricultural Research and Development Center, better known as OARDC. The center really has a two-part mission. One is to provide new and emerging businesses with professional office space, access to advanced technology, networking opportunities, and access to expert business counseling. The second is to be a positive and a visible example of how small businesses successfully navigate the difficult issues faced by all growing small businesses. We congratulate Center Director Ryan Mapes and his staff. The Endeavor Center will become the university's nomination for the Regional Outreach Scholarship W.K. Kellogg Foundation Engagement Award and the National C. Peter Magrath Community Engagement Award. This nomination is the highest honor Ohio State gives to an outreach and engagement program. Please join me in congratulating the Endeavor Center team. And finally, I want to add my congratulations to the Young Scholars Program, which not only won the 2013 University Outreach and Engagement Award, but as Valerie pointed out, also won the National 2013 McGraw Award, which was presented at the annual conference of the APLU, the Association of Public and Land-Grant Universities. I was very happy and pleased to pick up this award along with Valerie. So could we give another round of applause for that award? And now it's my great pleasure to introduce our interim president, Joseph Aludo. As you know, Dr. Aludo is in the home stretch of his second term serving as the university's interim president. Before that, he led the Fisher College of Business and for several years was provost here at Ohio State. This is a sign of a truly devoted leader and dedicated Buckeye. I'm personally grateful for his mentorship during my transition into the provost position over this last year. We're truly grateful for Joe's leadership for our university, and I'm pleased to introduce my mentor, colleague, and friend, Ohio State University's interim president, Joe Aludo.
Thank you very much, Joe. I have to say one of the nicest parts about being an interim president is to say to everyone who comes to my office, that's a problem for the provost. I'm just delighted to be here today. I've had the personal good fortune to know both Jim and Nancy Patterson for many, many years. I've been very lucky in having Jim available to me for just sort of personal guidance, personal advice, and also professional advice over the years. Now, some of that, of course, comes from the fact that Jim is a former Ohio State Board of Trustees member and a chair for whom this event is actually named. He's a fifth-generation Ohio farmer, a 1964 graduate of Ohio State's College of Agriculture. Jim has always been uniquely positioned as a champion for our land-grant mission, and one of the things I want to say, it's not in my script, is that both Jim and Nancy have always been the embodiment of our motto, which is education for citizenship. They've understood that it's not just a matter of gaining information, it's not just a matter of technical information, it's ultimately the extent to which people contribute to society, and that is one of the joys of working with them and getting to know them. But today, Jim, Nancy, and their sons, all of whom are Ohio State graduates, run the nearly 190-year-old Patterson fruit farm. So their Buckeye roots are almost as deep as in many ways their agricultural roots. So please join me in thanking them for their steadfast commitment to this great land-grant institution. Now, every spring, I look forward to this lecture as a reminder, but also as a celebration of our proud land-grant heritage as set forth in the Morrill Act of 1862. The Patterson Lecture gives us a chance to reflect on our founding purposes, but in a contemporary context. And in that context, we must consider how our role as a premier land-grant university is changing to serve not only those in agriculture, but all of Ohio's citizens. It's our profound responsibility to protect access to a world-class, life-changing education for all students, regardless of where they're from or for their financial status. Achieving both access and excellence, which we discuss all the time, is really a complex task, but it's one that we must achieve. And we must also recommit ourselves to our communities, embracing new partnerships so we can enrich lives and expand possibilities wherever they may be. And we do this because at the end of the day, that's our living legacy, to make our teaching, our research, and our healthcare relevant and useful to the citizens of society and indeed the world. Those themes, increasing educational access and excellence, and developing partnerships, are precisely what the annual Patterson Lecture is really all about, and really goes to the core values that are represented by Nancy and by Jim. But now, I'm honored to introduce a speaker who represents all of those values, and C. Peter Magrath. I can't think of another leader in higher education today who's more suited to deliver the Patterson Lecture, and that is Dr. Magrath. For 13 years, he served as president of the nation's oldest higher education association, the National Association of State Universities and Land-Grant Colleges, known to most of us as APLU, or the Association of Public and Land-Grant Universities. As the head of APLU, Dr. Magrath represented the association's 200-plus member institutions in Washington, D.C., and in educational settings quite literally around the world. And he focused on issues of national importance to higher education and to our educational community. His leadership led APLU to create the C. Peter Magrath Community Engagement Award in his honor. And it recognizes the outreach and engagement efforts of four-year public universities. As past president, or interim president, Peter, we have that in common, 5 public universities, including the University of Minnesota for 10 years, and the University of Missouri System for 7 years. Dr. Magrath has a very broad perspective on higher education. He served on the board of directors of the American Association of Community Colleges and the Salzburg Global Seminar, and on the Commission on the Future of the National Science Foundation. From 2006 to 2011, he served as senior presidential advisor to the College Board. And prior to that, he chaired the College Board's National Commission on Writing, which issued an acclaimed report entitled The Neglected R, calling for a writing revolution in American schools. Additionally, Peter organized the Kellogg Commission on the Future of State and Land-Grant Universities, and that consisted of 27 present and former presidents of major public universities and promoted an agenda of change and complete renewal for higher education. A political scientist specializing in American constitutional government, Dr. Magrath earned his undergraduate degree from the University of New Hampshire and his doctorate from Cornell. He's the author of numerous books, monographs, and articles on American constitutional law and history, on higher education, and on international affairs. And truly, his contributions to the higher education landscape, particularly related to the mission of land-grant universities, cannot be overstated in terms of scale and scope. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor and a pleasure to welcome our distinguished speaker, Dr. Peter Magrath. Peter.
Joe, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Is the microphone on? Okay. Now the water, no, it's okay. I need the water. You'll understand in a minute why I need it, but I'll put it down so I don't knock it over. First of all, it's a thrill to be here, and there are so many people in the room that I know, because this is one of the many, but a very special land-grant university that I just respect and love so very much. And I could start going around the room and naming names, but I'm not going to do that because we just be here too long. But Jim Patterson, I do want to salute you and Nancy for what you are and what you've been and what you continue to do for this great university. Now, I have done some public speaking, and I can do it okay, but I'm a little bit intimidated today, and I feel a little nervous that I might screw up, and it reminds me of a story about a newly minted minister who was going to his first church, and he went and talked to the retiring minister and explained that when he did his first service and sermon, he was really a little bit nervous and worried. And the retiring minister said, well, you know, I get uptight once in a while too, and so I take a tumbler of water and I fill it with 9 parts of water and 1 part vodka, and it helps. Well, the newly minted minister was really really messed up, and he filled a tumbler of water before his service with 9 parts of vodka, 1 part of water. After the service, he went to the retired minister and said, oh, how'd I do? Well, the retired minister said, there are a few things I got to tell you. There are 10 commandments, not just the 3 that you kept repeating over and over. The good Lord God created the earth in 6 days and rested on the 7th, not the other way round. And what we say is that David slew Goliath, not that he zapped that mother flat. So, you'll have to figure out at the end whether this is 9 parts water and 1 part vodka or the other way around. I want to talk about the land-grant movement, and it's a cause. It's a movement that was born in 1862 and is as relevant and essential in 2014 to America and our world as it was at its birth. Recall its history that I know all of you do know, generally speaking, that the tireless Senator Justin Morrill of Vermont had pushed and pushed for federal land-grant legislation since the 1850s, but it was blocked and vetoed in 1859 by a president of little, if any, faith, James Buchanan. And then pushing again, Morrill got it through Congress during our nation's greatest trial, the Civil War. President Abraham Lincoln, who had faith and vision, signed the legislation. The nation was divided. It was fractured over the sin, and it was a horrendous sin of slavery. But Morrill and Lincoln and those who voted for it understood that an emerging new nation would need education and opportunity for all men and all women. Remember how narrow, how exclusive education was then. It was for men only, for the rich and the powerful, the few who aspired to be ministers, lawyers, and military officers. And yes, these are needed professions, but it was education reserved for those that already had and would get more. The poor, the common man or woman, the sons and daughters of artisans, mechanics, and farmers were excluded. Morrill, and thank God others, saw that the nation's growth and economic and social development needed to provide education, opportunity through education, that it had to tap all the resources of the minds and hands needed to, as we would now say, to grow America. There wasn't a mission in the first Morrill Act. It was for whites only, and most African Americans were still enslaved. But in the years after the Civil War, Morrill pushed for the creation of black land-grant colleges, and that happened with the 1890 Morrill Act. Now today, we are not in a civil war, yet I think it's fair to say that our nation is hardly civil. We have big challenges. We have too many have-not human beings in our country and worldwide, too many persons with no hope and opportunity, too much hatred and discrimination of all kinds, and huge global economic competitive challenges. Well, can education and our land-grant colleges and universities solve these tough problems? No. Can they play key roles in helping to solve them? Yes. And let me explain why and how, beginning with my faith. Faith, whether in a religious or belief system or in persons or causes, is not factually provable, but it is what we believe, what motivates and inspires us, and what drives us. My land-grant faith is education for all people at all levels, K through life, K through life. My faith profoundly includes the land-grant movement and philosophy. Now, how did I come to it? It wasn't genetic or hereditary, so maybe it was grafted onto me. That grafting began during my undergraduate years at the University of New Hampshire, and one of my dear friends, Joanne Leitzel, who did a great job as president for that university, is here. That was a land-grant university once derided by many at an Ivy League school further north in the Granite State as just a cow college. That put-down has always puzzled me. Cows are good creatures. They provide milk and indeed are revered and holy in another great culture. I was an arts and sciences student interested in history, government, and literature. My fellow students were also studying agriculture, engineering, and what was then called home economics. Every day, I walked to classes, past barns from which emerged strange sounds and smells, and what I learned, and perhaps it was agriculturally grafted onto me, is this: education is learning, and learning how to learn. It matters not a jot whether it is so-called applied or theoretical, whether it is animal science or political science, or whether it leads to being a professor of philosophy or an extension or 4-H agent. And if anyone here doesn't know what 4-H is, you should be ashamed, but fake it that you do know what 4-H is, and it is a great, great cause itself. Good education, land-grant education, does three things. First, serve and help people. Second, serve and help people. Third, serve and help people. It avoids the bipolar trap that it's either one thing or another, that it's theory and the love of learning for its own sake, or that it's application to result-oriented outcomes. No, good education is both. It serves people by helping them learn to think and by helping them in the practicalities of their daily lives. It's both theory and practice joined together. This is my land-grant faith, and its application is relevant to Ohio, to our country, and our world. And it's needed because we face severe challenges at many, many levels. There are many challenges, obviously, but I will start with the proposition that land-grant universities cannot do their people-serving work without resources, without money. And the money that states can allocate to their universities is down, down, down. The trend line has been clear for years. The impact varies from state to state. In Ohio, the state now provides Ohio State, I think, about approximately 10%. At West Virginia University, where I spent time, it's around 20%. At my last presidency at Binghamton University, it's about 20%. And for some state universities, it's as low as 5, 6%. In my and your lifetime, and pardon my English, it ain't going back up. So what about federal support? Well, it's still there. It's helpful for student assistance and research, but the trend line is not heading north. This means that we have to get most of our resources elsewhere, from painful tuition and fee increases, especially from the affluent, from fundraising, from being even more dedicated to cost controls and energy efficiencies, and from being entrepreneurial. And this most critically means that the 21st century Landgrant University must at its core be an engaged university. That term, engagement, comes from the work that was mentioned in Joe's introduction of the Kellogg Commission on the Future of State and Land-Grant Universities. And the commission's first chair was a person rather well known hereabouts, the bow tie guy, E. Gordon Gee. What's an engaged university? It's characterized by three things. It must be organized to respond to the needs of today's student and tomorrow's, not yesterday's. It must enrich student experiences by bringing research and engagement into the curriculum and offering practical opportunities for students to prepare for the world they will enter. And third, it must put its critical resources, knowledge, and expertise to work on the problems that its communities face. The engaged university has to be entrepreneurial. It has to partner not only with community and not-for-profit organizations and governments, but with business so that it can generate resources. This means we negotiate contractual deals in which we make available our research and faculty to projects that generate revenue. And many of these projects in turn, and I've seen this personally, in turn bring graduate level instruction to the university from the business enterprises. Now, a fair question is this: can this be done without selling our land-grant soul in a Faustian bargain? Yes, it can. Many smart business leaders, many, get it, that their business and our universities intersect, but they don't and must not 100% overlap. A key part of it, you can call it, I guess, academic freedom, separates us, makes us as universities super critical, often a pain in the butt, but it is this unfettered freedom that makes us invaluable to business and to the larger society. We do it in our universities, in our relationships with the Department of Defense, we do it with the Department of Agriculture, we've done it for years in our ag research and extension programs. Regardless of the diverse sources of funding, we can preserve our ethos, our land-grant philosophy and commitment, our unchanging calling to serve and help people. If we do these things, and you are doing this here at Ohio State, and what I sat through this morning in the engagement awards, and it's incredible, it's incredibly exciting. If we do these things, educate for life, engage as partners and not as the smart folks from the university who are here to tell the other people how to do what they should be doing, but if we come as partners and work as partners, and if we forge smart entrepreneurial deals, we will attract the resources we need. Doing these things also fulfills our obligation to promote economic development. In an intensely competitive global marketplace, we need to compete aggressively and smartly, but we need the talents that flow from our land-grant universities. We did it before because of the economic and social power that the Morrill Act unleashed in agriculture and rural America. We did it with our great Aggie schools, with the Hatch and Smith-Lieber Acts, with the belated but vital inclusion of the black land grants in 1890 Morrill Act, and just a few years ago with the tribal or Indian colleges that are now part of the land-grant movement. We should never forget that the land-grant legislation was not just, although it was certainly about agriculture and food, but it was also about educational opportunity for the sons and daughters of artisans and mechanics, essentially the have-nots, the unwashed, the underutilized, the marginalized, all those who were not seen as important as the rich and privileged who are going to be ministers, lawyers, military officers. It is economic development that brings social improvement and the opportunity for men and women to become thinking human beings who can create art and music and literature that enriches us all in a world where theory and practice and art and agriculture are part of a seamless whole. Engagement, true partnership with the community is not only for universities, but it is most fundamentally the mission, the calling of land-grant universities. It is the core, the heart of what we are and must forever be. I conclude by affirming my faith in the land-grant movement. I do this because I can't help but do it. Years ago, when I was even younger than I am now, I taught constitutional law, and one of my favorite Supreme Court justices was Oliver Wendell Holmes, Jr., a fascinating person who often spoke of things one did or believed as can't helps, regardless of how they became, for better or worse, part of us. I can't help being a land-grant guy. To the contrary, I want to be that, because at its irreducible core, the land-grant movement is about empowering and energizing people. It's about enabling the too many have-nots to blossom and about building a more just and humane society. This land-grant movement is based on being fully and vibrantly engaged. It is about helping build someday, somehow, a more decent and peaceful world, free of hunger and with decency and justice for all. This is my faith, and I hope yours. We should affirm it, fight for it, and pray for it. Thank you very much.
I just asked Dr. Magrath if he would like to take some questions, and he said yes, if they're friendly and polite. So if you have a friendly or polite question, you may ask it. We're kidding. Are there any questions? Yes.
What do I see as a barrier to this faith? You know, I'm hesitating. I'm thinking of an old quip, you know, when a student asks a professor a question and the professor says, that's a good question, that means that the professor doesn't have the slightest idea what the hell to say. But actually, I think I see as a barrier our feeling that we can't change something, improve the world, improve ourselves. I mean, we can get very personal about this. All of us, I think, in our human individual lives have, you know, flaws and things we try to overcome. And if we try, we can change ourselves and become better human beings and better people to the people we're with and that we serve and love. And I think that's true. I mean, the barrier is a feeling, oh, it can't be done. You know, it's not going to happen. Well, I have an answer to that. My answer is, okay, you know, if nothing can change, if we can't improve the world, okay, let's forget it. The hell with it. We stop. We don't do anything. I can't personally accept that, and I don't think we should. That doesn't mean being Pollyannish and foolish and that, you know, you wish and pray for something that's going to happen. It doesn't work that way. But I do believe that if life is worth living, and I think it is, darn it, then you ought to fight for it and push for it, even if it doesn't happen in your lifetime. But at some point, things may get better and will get better, and they sure as heck aren't getting better if the men and women, and that's the majority, of people of good faith don't push for change. So my message is, yes, there are barriers, but you have to keep trying. By the way, I am incredibly impressed. You know, my last name is pronounced correctly here. I mean, this is amazing because, you know, I don't have anything against the name Magrath, but I spell it Magrath, and that's the way my daddy taught me to spell it, and it means, I was once told it meant son of a warrior, not something else, but I'm just astounded. I mean, I love this university, and my name, everybody's pronouncing it correctly. Wow. I'd be happy to take any questions. Yes, sir. This is a former employee of Ohio State by the name of Dick Stoddard, and he's not a good person. Yes? Yeah. Well, I don't know, Dick. I think at times I've seen some people in the land-grant movement begin to doubt the values of the land-grant movement, have negative feelings about food, agriculture, and stuff, and that used to drive me nuts, because I used to say, you know, I'm not interested in the fact, Jim, I don't remember what the percentage is, but you know, 2 or 3 or 4% of the people in the United States are involved in production agriculture on a farm. But the last time I checked, you know, 100% of us need good, nutritious food, and that's critical. But I have seen at times people saying, well, you know, we really have to just promote, and I'm an arts and sciences person, the arts and sciences, and forget about this practical stuff. And there are some presidents, and I won't name names, but that will have said some pretty ridiculous things about, well, land-grant universities, they don't teach arts and sciences and all that, which is absolute balderdash. So I think at times I've seen that, but you know, right now I think that there is a great appreciation for what land-grant is, and the engagement part, I think, is absolutely critical. I mean, I think the only way we can survive, as I tried to say in my remarks, is we got to be engaged with the community in a partnership way, and it's a two-way deal. We learn, they learn, we come to them, and we say, you know, we think we've got some talents that might be useful to you. We know you've got some talents that are exciting. What can we do together to solve your problems or the things you're concerned about? And I think that engagement thing is really taken hold. I mean, it's so evident here. So I think we've crossed that barrier, and my faith, and can't help, is we got to keep pushing the land-grant movement. I think there was a question here. Yeah.
Can you discuss a little bit about the role and the rationale for international engagement with the Land-Grant Commission?
Very easily. In fact, I was thinking when I prepared my remarks that I didn't mention international, and I said, you know, I might get a question about that, and I'm glad I did, because I believe, and I've given a speech on this topic, a university that is not international is not a university, okay? We are in a global world, and I absolutely believe, and we've got engagement activities from Ohio State and Tanzania, et cetera, and other things that involve international engagement. So when I talk about engagement, yes, I'm talking kind of in a domestic sense in our United States, but I truly mean it's got to be international. And that's not just in the, and it's not superficial, it's not just in having international students here, and that's a word I like. We talk about foreign students, that's not a horrible term, but you know, we're all foreigners someplace, so I like the term international students and international engagement, and that involves relationships with other universities overseas, collaborative partnerships with NGOs overseas, et cetera, et cetera. So the engaged university is an internationally engaged university, including obviously within the United States for American universities. Other questions? Yes.
Really an elite university. It's over and above, its calling is over and above other universities, and I think a lot of it is perception, and I think that's something we need to work on sort of internally within universities.
Jim, I agree very much with what you said. Listen, I have a graduate degree from a private university, Cornell. Although Cornell is a land-grant university, thank God, and it really is, and big member of the APLU, et cetera, as by the way is MIT. They play great dues to the association. But there is a bias in the United States against, you know, I taught at Brown for 7 years, that the private colleges and universities are the creme de la creme, they're the real quality, and the other stuff isn't so good. And yes, I made a reference, and it's, you know, and she's a smart lady, but the president of Harvard made some comments a couple of years back about, well, you know, land-grant universities, they don't teach the arts and sciences, don't teach real thinking and stuff. They just do this Aggie stuff, and that's nice, but you know. And actually, Gordon Gee went ballistic on this and had some very sharp things to say to her in rebuttal. But there is this bias that the real quality is with the private. Now, the fact is the private colleges and universities are very good. They're accredited. They do great stuff, period. There's no question about it. The fact is, of course, they cost 5 or 6 times as much as we do, and we do just as well in terms of creative thinking and the arts and sciences, and yes, in agriculture, and it used to be called home economics, a term I like, but I guess it's human environmental sciences or human ecology, but all that stuff we do, we are just as good, and I think we just got to stand up and say, excuse me, by the way, if you want to look at corporations and directors and stuff, it's all changed. Yes, there are still lots of powerful people from the Ivy Leagues and our federal government and stuff like that, but you look at top corporations and stuff, you're going to see people from such places as Nebraska and Michigan State and Ohio State, and I could go on, that are on the boards. I think that has changed, and frankly, what, 95, 96% of the students that are being educated in our great community colleges and in our 4-year public colleges and universities. So I think we just give it back and say, hey, you do good work, but you know what? We do work that is just as good as yours, and actually we probably do even better work. That's my view. Okay, thank you. Okay. One more? Yes. Okay.
Do you see the recent trend for online education? Is that a threat to the traditional land-grant and, you know, brick and mortar kind of educational model, or is that an opportunity for us to further the land-grant and traditional, you know, educational model to get it to other people? The online education movement, MOOCs, and other, you know, alternative forms of education.
Yeah. My answer, I don't know. Actually, I think we ought to be small c Catholic about this and embrace every kind of education. And I think online education can be and is okay. And a lot of universities, I know Penn State does this, but I bet that's done here. There are a lot of students who are quote unquote typical, well, I don't know what a traditional student is, but you know, a regular student who take classes in labs and with professors in class who also take online courses and mix and match and do that. And I think that's okay. I think as long as we know what the standards are of the online education that's coming and it's vetted or checked by universities such as Ohio State and Michigan State, Minnesota, et cetera, it's really okay. I think we should be very careful to exclude anything. I think we ought to be inclusive, but I think we need to provide the check that come from our faculty and our staff. That would be my answer, yeah. All right, I thank you very much, and I think I had pretty much just water in that tumbler. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, and we have some gifts for you. I'm going to present them. Okay. Thanks to all of you for making this another memorable Patterson lecture, and a special thanks to my staff for all the work that you have done thus far today and will continue to do for the next several hours. I hope that all of you have a chance to stop by the Outreach and Engagement Forum right next door in the Archie Griffin East Ballroom, where you can interact and learn more about some 120 outstanding outreach and engagement programs from our faculty, staff, students, and of course, community partners. For the second year in a row, you will notice that on your tables, and it's under your plates, there's a note about the drumstick story, an innovative outreach and engagement moment in Ohio State's history. As an added incentive to go next door and visit the forum, we have drumsticks waiting for you at the forum entrance. And last year, this was a big hit, so, you don't want to miss out. This concludes our program, and have a wonderful afternoon.